The rising regional tensions involving Iran, Israel, and the United States have been developing over time, but recent events have significantly intensified the situation, making it more volatile and unpredictable. What was once largely characterized by indirect confrontations, political signaling, and strategic posturing has gradually shifted toward a more active and visible state of alert across multiple fronts. Each side is closely monitoring the other's movements, responses, and military readiness, which creates an environment where even minor developments can quickly gain strategic importance. This rising tension is not limited to a single incident or event, but is instead the result of accumulated disagreements, historical conflicts, and competing regional interests. Over time, these underlying issues have contributed to a cycle where actions taken by one party are often perceived as threats by another, prompting reactions that further deepen mistrust. Military deployments, defensive systems, and intelligence operations have all increased in visibility, signaling that each actor is preparing for a range of possible outcomes rather than relying on stability or cooperation. Additionally, the constant exchange of warnings, statements, and strategic positioning contributes to an atmosphere where uncertainty dominates decision-making. Leaders on all sides are forced to consider not only immediate consequences, but also long-term implications of their actions, which adds pressure to respond cautiously yet firmly. This balancing act between deterrence and escalation plays a key role in shaping how tensions evolve, as each move is carefully calculated to avoid triggering a larger confrontation while still maintaining a strong stance. The risk of rapid escalation in the Middle East has become increasingly significant as tensions involving Iran, Israel, and the United States continue to intensify. In the current environment, even relatively small incidents, such as a targeted strike, a defensive interception, or an unexpected border event, can trigger a chain reaction of responses. This is largely because all sides are operating under heightened alert conditions, where military forces are positioned for quick deployment and defensive systems are actively monitoring potential threats in real time. Unlike in more stable periods where diplomatic dialogue could absorb and de-escalate isolated incidents, the present situation is characterized by reduced tolerance for ambiguity. Each side interprets the other's actions through a security-focused lens, meaning that movements or operations that might otherwise be routine can be perceived as hostile or provocative. This increases the likelihood that responses will be immediate rather than delayed, leaving little room for clarification or back-channel communication before a reaction is initiated. Another factor contributing to rapid escalation is the interconnected nature of military and strategic assets in the region. Air defense systems, naval forces, and forward-deployed units are all operating within close proximity, which shortens response times and reduces the margin for error. In such conditions, misidentification, technical errors, or miscommunication can quickly lead to unintended engagements. Once an initial response occurs, the expectation of retaliation from the opposing side creates a feedback loop where each action prompts another, gradually intensifying the situation without a centralized effort to de-escalate. This dynamic environment makes escalation not only possible but increasingly likely if tensions continue to rise without effective communication or restraint. Communication between the key actors, including Iran, Israel, and the United States, has become increasingly strained, and this lack of effective dialogue is one of the major factors contributing to the growing instability in the region. Diplomatic channels that might normally be used to de-escalate tensions or clarify intentions are limited, indirect, or in some cases, entirely inactive. As a result, misunderstandings are more likely to occur, and there is a greater reliance on public statements, signals, and strategic actions rather than direct negotiation. In this environment, each side tends to interpret the actions of others through a cautious and often defensive perspective. Without strong communication frameworks, even routine military movements or political statements can be perceived as threats or preparations for aggression. This perception gap increases uncertainty and reduces the ability of parties to accurately gauge each other's intentions, which is essential for preventing unnecessary escalation. Back-channel diplomacy, which has historically played a role in managing sensitive situations, appears limited or under pressure, further reducing opportunities for quiet resolution of disputes. At the same time, the absence of trust between the parties amplifies the challenge. Years of conflict, competing interests, and unresolved disputes have created an atmosphere where assurances are often viewed with skepticism. This makes it difficult to establish common ground or agree on confidence-building measures that could help stabilize the situation. Without reliable communication and mutual trust, even well-intentioned messages may fail to achieve their purpose, leading instead to further caution, defensive posturing, and reactive decision-making. As tensions continue to evolve, the lack of effective communication channels not only slows down potential diplomatic progress, but also increases the likelihood that isolated incidents could be misinterpreted, contributing to further instability across the region. The involvement of multiple actors beyond the primary states, including regional partners and allied groups, adds a significant layer of complexity to the overall situation involving Iran, Israel, and the United States. These groups may operate with varying degrees of independence, while still maintaining ideological, strategic, or logistical alignment with larger state actors. Their participation effectively broadens the scope of the conflict, transforming it from a limited confrontation into a more interconnected network of actions and responses across different locations. Because these groups are not always under direct, centralized command, their operations can introduce unpredictability into an already sensitive environment. Actions taken by such groups may be influenced by local conditions, immediate tactical opportunities, or broader regional alignments, rather than a coordinated high-level strategy. This makes it difficult for opposing sides to anticipate or fully control the timing, scale, or nature of potential incidents, increasing the chances of unexpected developments that could escalate tensions further. Additionally, the presence of these actors creates multiple points of potential contact or conflict. Instead of a single front, the situation effectively involves several overlapping fronts where incidents can occur independently but still have wider implications. A localized event involving one group can quickly be interpreted as part of a larger pattern, prompting responses from other parties that are not directly involved in the initial incident. This interconnectedness means that escalation is not always linear, but can spread across different regions and actors in a relatively short period of time. The involvement of allied groups also complicates diplomatic and strategic calculations. Efforts to manage or de-escalate tensions must account for a wider set of participants, each with their own objectives and constraints. This makes coordination more difficult and increases the number of variables that must be considered in any attempt to stabilize the situation, contributing to the overall uncertainty and fluidity of the regional dynamics. The influence of global powers, particularly the United States, plays a significant role in shaping the dynamics of the ongoing tensions involving Iran and Israel. The involvement of such a major power introduces additional strategic weight to the situation, as its military capabilities, political decisions, and alliances can directly or indirectly affect how events unfold in the region. The presence of the United States is often viewed through a dual lens, on one hand as a stabilizing force that can deter large-scale aggression, and on the other as a factor that may intensify tensions depending on how its actions are perceived by other parties. In practical terms, the United States maintains military assets, intelligence capabilities, and strategic partnerships across the Middle East, which allow it to monitor developments closely and respond quickly if necessary. These assets include naval deployments, air defense systems, and coordinated defense arrangements with regional allies. Such positioning is intended to protect interests, support allies, and maintain a balance of power. But it also means that any escalation in the region has the potential to involve U.S. forces either directly or indirectly. The strategic decisions made by the United States are often closely watched by both allies and adversaries. Statements, deployments, or policy shifts can influence the behavior of other actors, as they interpret these signals in the context of deterrence, support, or potential intervention. This creates a situation where the actions of a single global power can have ripple effects across multiple countries and conflict zones, shaping the overall tone and direction of the crisis. At the same time, the involvement of a global power adds complexity to conflict management and resolution efforts. While its presence may help prevent unchecked escalation by discouraging aggressive actions, it also introduces additional considerations for all parties involved, as they must account for the possibility of a broader response. This interplay between deterrence and influence highlights the critical role that global powers play in both stabilizing and shaping the evolving situation in the Middle East. The uncertainty surrounding the future of the Middle East situation involving Iran, Israel, and the United States continues to grow as multiple variables remain in flux and no clear long-term resolution is in sight. Each side is operating with its own strategic priorities, security concerns, and regional interests, which often do not align with one another. This creates a dynamic where actions are frequently reactive rather than coordinated, and where planning must account for a wide range of possible outcomes rather than a single predictable trajectory. One of the key reasons for this high level of uncertainty is the absence of a stable framework for sustained diplomatic engagement. While occasional discussions or indirect communications may take place, they are not always sufficient to build lasting agreements or reduce underlying mistrust. As a result, the situation remains sensitive to developments on the ground, with each new event having the potential to shift perceptions and influence future decisions. Leaders and policymakers are therefore required to continuously reassess their strategies based on evolving conditions, rather than relying on fixed assumptions. Another contributing factor is the presence of multiple actors and overlapping interests within the region. Beyond the primary countries, various allied groups, regional partners, and international stakeholders all play a role in shaping the broader environment. This interconnected web of relationships means that changes in one area can have ripple effects across others, making it difficult to isolate or contain specific developments. Even localized incidents can gain broader significance if they intersect with existing tensions or strategic priorities. Additionally, the involvement of major global powers introduces further unpredictability. Their policies, military posture, and diplomatic decisions can influence both the behavior of regional actors and the overall balance of power. Because these influences are not static and may change in response to new information or shifting geopolitical considerations, the overall situation remains fluid. This combination of competing interests, limited communication, and external influence contributes to a landscape where the future direction of events is difficult to forecast with certainty.